Hey guys, what's going on? I'm back here with this little mini bike engine that I'm working on trying to put back together. Now, I did record a video of honing the cylinder and some of the stuff I did on the red mini bike. Um, Unfortunately, I lost that video footage. I screwed up and accidentally deleted it. So I will have to go back through and do another honing video. Um, but what I will do is I'll drop the piston down in this engine. And today what we're going to be doing is putting the top end together. I'll go through the head that I have here. It's a Honda GX head. It has a 14cc combustion chamber. So it's a lot smaller than the Hemi head that was on it. Higher compression with this head. And I'll show you, I'll see if I can get some snapshots of the ports. I did clean these ports up inside here. They're a lot smoother. The transitions are a lot smoother. I got rid of all the rough ridges inside the intake and exhaust. Um, that's really all I did to this head. I was going to mill it, but with it having a smaller combustion chamber to begin with, I think I'm just going to leave it the way it is. It should run pretty good, especially since this engine is a zero deck. And it's got a flat top piston. So I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it the way it is. The combustion chamber on this isn't very big to begin with. So I think we'll be all right. We're not using a super high lift cam in it. I ended up putting the BSP4 cam in it rather than the one that was originally in it. The one that was originally in it, I found out was a Mod 2 cam. And the BSP4 that I have has a little bit more duration and a little higher lift. So I went ahead and put that cam in this engine. I wish I still had that video footage to be able to show you guys, but unfortunately I don't. So we'll be throwing the head on it, torquing it down. We will be checking valve lash just like I did in the other video. We'll go ahead and throw the carb on it, and then what I'll do is I'll kind of go over some of the stuff that I did on the inside of this engine real quickly. Aside from honing, I went through and I did a plasti gauge on the crank and the bearing inside this. We ended up okay on our clearances, so the bottom end of this engine is fine. There's no wear or anything inside this engine. The lifters looked fine. Like I said on the last video, everything seemed to be okay. So we're gonna go ahead and put the top end together. I'm not worried about the bottom end. Everything spins nice and smoothly. There's no rough spots or anything. So I'll yeah, we'll go ahead and get started putting this together. So I do have a new 10,000 head gasket that's going to be going on this. Now, when you switch these engines over from the Hemi head, which actually let me grab a Hemi head real quick, and I'll just show you the comparison between the two. So I don't know if you remember in the last video. This is actually the head that was on this engine. And I'll hold this one up, and I'll hold this one up. So if you look, this head, I don't know if you can really tell too much, but this head's actually got a deeper and more open, a wider combustion chamber. So this one is roughly 22 cc's, and this one's right around 14. So we're cutting the volume of that combustion chamber down significantly. And then we're also, They flip this over so they're facing the same way. So that'll add compression. It'll get us a little bit more compression, a little bit more horsepower, a little bit more snap on this thing. So that's the main difference between these two heads. This one, the Hemi head, it does have slightly bigger valves in it, but I'm not worried about the airflow as much as I am trying to squeeze compression out of it. The reason being is I'm putting a little bit bigger cam in this than what was in it, not only stock, but what was in it from the Mod 2. The second thing is I've opened the ports up on these. Now the valves are the stock size valves, but the ports on the intake and exhaust have been opened up and smooth. Now the other thing that I did with this head is I put 22-pound valve springs in it. So we should be able to get these valves to close much quicker and be able to push a little bit more RPMs out of it versus the Hemi head that had a stock spring configuration, stock valve configuration. That head is a stock Hemi head that we pulled off of this engine. So with all that being said, we can go ahead and start putting this head on, start assembling it. I typically torque my head bolts to 20 foot-pounds, and I go up 5 pounds at a time as I'm going through this and tightening in a crisscross pattern. I think stock, it's like 17 foot-pounds. All the ones that I do, I put them at 20 just to make sure I got a good seal between the gasket, the head, and the block. That 3 pounds isn't gonna really change it that much as far as the failure of the bolt. But what it does do, and a lot of these guys that build these engines, they'll put them at about 20. So that's what I do. All right, I think I have everything in front of me that I need. I'm hoping the audio in this video is a little bit better. I moved my microphone down here. I noticed that when it was up here, it was muffly and made some noise. So I'm kind of hoping that it sounds a little bit better. So if it doesn't, bear with me. I'm still trying to figure out this video recording stuff. So I'll go ahead and stand up. I'll bring you guys in a little bit closer here to the engine. Pushing you downward. All right. All right. So like I said, 010 head gasket. It's just a thin steel head gasket. What I like to do is I like to wipe this stuff off a little bit before I put it in. Just to make sure that there's no little hairs or anything that flew by or settled on it. Now I did just pull this out of the packaging, so it shouldn't be too bad, but you never know. Okay. Now these head gaskets, they will only go on one way. So as you're lining this up, it'll only sit on there one way. Try to flip it around. It won't fit with the dowel in there, or the alignment. Yeah, the alignment dowel. If you flip it this way, it won't fit. None of your holes line up, so this will only fit on there one way. And it's going to sit in there like that. This is a 70mm gasket. You have your openings here for your push rods. Like I said, I got 2 push rods right here. And I don't remember if I said it or not, but I was kind of leading into it. When you change these heads over from a Hemi head to a non-Hemi head, you have to use non-Hemi push rods. So the push rods are a little bit shorter. So make sure you get your non-Hemi push rods or your valve clearance is going to be way, way off. So while I got the engine facing this way, I'm going to go ahead and drop that piston. Pick up the camera. Now, I don't know if you can see down in there very well or not, but I did hone this cylinder, so all that stuff that we've seen in there before is now nice and cleaned up. I put new rings on the piston, so that's all cleaned up. It should be pretty much a rebuilt engine by the time everything's said and done, minus the replacement of the crank bearing, but don't really need to replace it because all the clearances came out okay. So I'll go ahead and throw this back on, and what I'm going to do is turn the engine toward me so I can kind of see what I'm doing here. Do that, we'll take our head and start it on that dowel. Now you want to be careful with your head gasket because this engine only came with one dowel. So what I'm going to do is start it. I'm going to start it on this dowel. I'm going to go ahead and throw a bolt in also. That way I don't have to worry about this head gasket moving so much. All right, there we go. All right, that is sitting down where it needs to. So now what I'm going to do is, where'd my other bolt go? There it is. I'm going to go ahead and start these two. And I'm going to use my impact. Now, I'm not going to run these down till the impact starts screaming at me. I'm going to run them down just until it touches. All I'm doing is trying to get this head to stay in place. I'm not trying to tighten it at all. Literally just holding it in place. Okay. So now the head's held in place. And from there, we're going to go ahead and take our torque wrench. And these bolts, again, are 12 millimeter. We're going to take our torque wrench and run it up to 5 pounds. And we'll go ahead and do a round at 5 pounds. In a crisscross pattern. Yeah, this one could have went down a little bit more. Not too big a deal. We'll just keep going until it runs down. There it is. Okay. Okay. So that's 4. We're going to go up to 10. All right, that's 10. $15. And 20. Slipped off of that one a little bit. Okay. Now, what I like to do is go back around all these just to make sure we're at that mark. So I like to settle sometimes. I usually do this 3 times just because they, again, as you're pushing these down and that head gasket is kind of compressing, especially being a steel head gasket, it kind of, they settle a little bit. There we go. Okay, those are all tightened down to 20 foot-pounds. All right. Now we're going to take our push rods. We're going to go ahead and turn the engine here. I'm going to go ahead and slide them in here. Now what you want to do is you want to make sure you're down in that lifter. There it goes. Drop down in there. So what I usually do is if I put them in and they're kind of they're sticking out slightly like that. You can kind of see between this one and this one. I'll wiggle it around and they'll both now should be sitting about flush with each other down in there. The other thing you can do too is grab a hold of your flywheel and move it back and forth, and you can see my finger moving. You want to be right on that circle, right when your intake is opening and closing. So that's kind of where you want to be at. Go ahead and take your rockers and set them over in place. Flip your rocker cups over top of your push rod here on both sides. Sometimes you need to loosen that adjustment nut a little bit. So just like in the other video, you're going to slide that into place. Make sure you wiggle around and run your adjustment nut down just until it's touching. Do the same for both sides. Make sure your push rods are sitting in the cups where they're supposed to be seated. All right. Make sure your lash cap is on your exhaust side. And stand by. Let me grab a 10 and a 14. I did not grab those. Oh, kick the camera. All right. Got my 10 and 14. Also got my 3/1000 feeler gauge. I'm going to go ahead and slide this in. Loosen these up until I can get it in. There we go. You want to go twist your adjustment nut down till it's got a little bit of friction in there. Okay. Again, you want your 14 on your adjustment nut. You want your 10 on your lock nut. We'll go ahead and lock this down and see where we end up. Okay. Loosen it back up, come out, tighten it back down. Still too tight. Loosen it up, come back out. Go. A little bit more. Okay. That's about where you want it. As you do more and more of these, you'll kind of get a feel for where you need to be at, and you can kind of move your locking and your adjustment nut simultaneously, and you'll become quicker at it as you do more and more of these. I'll just go ahead and do this adjustment without really explaining too much. That way I can show you kind of how it goes as I go through the process. Go a little looser on this one. This one's pretty close, but yeah. Okay. Valve lash is adjusted on both sides. So, like I said before, you want to make sure you have a little bit of movement in here with your rockers. Even after your valve lash is adjusted, you're still going to have some movement here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to roll this engine over so you can kind of see how this is working. There's the intake going down. You'll see, there we go, there's the exhaust. Intake. And there goes the exhaust. There goes the intake. Exhaust. Intake. Okay, so we've done about 3 revolutions now. And we are back up to the top. Okay, so both of these are still a little bit loose. We don't have any binding or anything. I'm going to go ahead and stick my feeler gauge back in there. And this is why I like to do this, because now I'm actually just a hair loose on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and crack this loose. We're going to go a little bit more on the lash on that. A little bit more. There we go. Almost there. And get this thing to stay upright. All right. There we go. A little too tight. Loosen. A little too tight. Loosen. There we go. Okay. Yep. This one's being difficult. There it goes. Alright, that side was being a little difficult with me. Okay. That one's good. Recheck our exhaust. I loosened way up. So, go ahead and pop this loose. We're going to go ahead and start over on this side. Alright, let's test again. Open. Open. Okay. Open. 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 Yeah, that is 3 revolutions. Intake's good. Exhaust is good. Okay. Valve lash is set, and that is good to go now. So we'll go ahead and take our rocker cover, throw it on. Yeah. Just so you guys know, this is just a little 12-volt impact. It's not torquing these things down to anything crazy tight or anything. Okay. Go ahead and take our spark plug and put it in. And again, this is the AR3910X by Autolite. These are the ones that I use on all of them. Go grab a 3/8 ratchet. Okay, this top end is now back together. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab a bolt real quick. Let's see if I can find one. I'll throw one in here. Actually, what I'll do is I'll use one of these. I got an extra one up here. Let me pull that one out and I'll just use it. The bolt that was in there was an Allen, and it was again way too tight. So I'll use this. I'll use this little extra 8mm they got sitting up here. Again, 12 volt impact. Doesn't go crazy. Okay. Go ahead and get our card mounted. This engine will be about ready to fire up. So next video I do, it'll probably be actually starting this engine, running this engine, kind of going through that process and working the bugs out of the carburetor, make sure that it make sure it's tuned the way it needs to be. And then after I get that going, this engine will actually be going online for sale on Marketplace and on my page. So if you have any interest in purchasing this engine, get a hold of me on Marketplace or on through Messenger, and we will work something out. All right, I'll have to grab an Allen to tighten those up. I thought I had more tools over there than I did. Or I actually needed more tools than I had over there. Let's see here. Go. Okay, I'm going to adjust this carb a little bit because I can already tell it's not where I want it. Especially on that side. Let's see here. Let's see if we can adjust this up slightly. There we go. All right, that's about where I want it. So these little manifolds that you can put on these, you can move the carb on them slightly, left, right, somewhat up and down, and it'll help get that carb to be level, which is kind of what you want when you have this thing sitting on a go-kart or a mini bike. You want it to be as level as possible so the float bowl doesn't, or the float itself doesn't get all crooked, and then you run into fuel overflow issues and stuff like that. Okay. So that's all on there. I got to do the exhaust. Turn it this way. I got to do the exhaust yet, which I don't know what I'm going to do on it. I'll probably do a shorty exhaust. The one that was on it was just a... Grab it real quick. One that was on it was just a pipe that was cut, which I'm already going through all this stuff. I don't know. I don't think I really want that. I'll probably do chrome looking one like I had before. Or maybe I'll do a center exit pipe. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But just to go over the specs on this, has a billet side cover, billet ARC rod, flat top piston, zero decked. Has a 14cc non-hemispherical head, ported head, 22-pound valve springs, 24mm Nibby carb, speed cart billet flywheel, Paul's hot coil with ground strap, 8mm wire, and the AR 3910X plug. This should be a pretty stout little engine. It should run about like the other one that I built was. And again, it's pretty much the same platform, so it should be identical. There's really not that much of a difference between the two engines. The only real difference, let's get you guys back again. The only real difference is the cam size. Like I said, this has a BSP4 cam in it versus the 262 cam that I had in the other one. But I'll have to look up the lift on this engine or on this cam to see exactly what this lift is. It is smaller than the 262, but I believe it's 20, like a 246 maybe, or 248. I'll have to look. It's slightly smaller, but it's not much smaller. So anyway, that's putting the top end of this engine together. Like I said, next video I'll be actually starting this engine, running it, seeing how it runs, so on and so forth. And then I will be also doing another video, since I deleted the one that I had, on the little red mini bike, which is right behind me. As you can see, it looks a little different. It's actually put together, and frame is stretched. Actually runs pretty good. So it's got a stock 208 in it. Not crazy fast, but it's an 8-year-old riding it, so I don't think he needs a whole lot to get that little mini bike moving. So anyway, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. We'll see if we can get this thing going, see what it sounds like, and then, like I said, this engine will be for sale, but I would like to try to put it on something just to see how it handles and what the difference between this one and the other one that I built was, as far as seat of the pants and how it feels. But it should be a pretty stout little engine. So I'm excited to get this on something and see how it goes. See you guys on the next one. Thanks.